invited Professor Jayachandra Reddy, the former director, Center for South Asian Pacific Study, Sri Venkata University, to Tirupati, India, to deliver his speech. Invited Professor. Professor, can you unmute?
Yeah, are you hearing to me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, thank you very much. Greetings and wishes to everyone, dignitaries of this online conference, Professor Dang Nguyen Ang, Vice President of VAS, His Excellency Mr. Pranay Verma, Indian Ambassador to Vietnam, His Excellency Mr. Ian Than Quang Wei, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of Singapore to Vietnam, His Excellency Mr. Ali Akbar Nazari, Iranian Ambassador to Vietnam, His Excellency Mr. Prasanna Gamage, Sri Lankan Ambassador to Vietnam, His Excellency Mr. Sadi Salama, Palestinian Ambassador to Vietnam, His Excellency Mr. Pham Si Tham, former Vietnamese Ambassador to India, and ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I express my sincere thanks to Professor Nguyen Xuan Trong, former Director General, VISAS, Dr. Pham Cao Kong, Deputy Director General, VISAS, Dr. Lee Thi Hang Na, Deputy Chief, Vietnam Journal of Indian and Asian Studies, and Director Generals of different institutes of VAS, Professor Minoru Mio, Japan Axis Convener, Professor Kim, Director Institute of Indian Studies, South Korea, Professor Surat, Center for Indian Studies, Chulalongkorn University, Professor Gyanesh, National University of Singapore, and Professor Riho, Isaka, University of Tokyo, for inviting me to deliver the keynote address at this conference. I deem it a privilege and honor for being part of this intellectual forum, for sharing my ideas with the scholars from South, Southeast Asia, and East Asian countries. Let me start with the brief introduction. For over 18 centuries from the beginning of Christian era, Asia had dominated the world economy with greater connectivity and integration. Such distinction of Asia reversed during the 19th and first half of the 20th centuries by Europeans, particularly Britishers. South Asia was the home to one of the world's earliest known civilizations of the world. Specific advantage had to India vis-a-vis its South Asian neighbors, that none of its neighbors can interact with another without crossing Indian territory. Therefore, much of my presentation on South Asia centers on India. The proximity of South Asia and Southeast Asia had sustained deep cultural and trade links for over 15 centuries from the beginning of the Christian era. The cultural and commercial interaction between India and Southeast Asian countries was bereft of any exploitation of whatsoever kind. The Indian influences were all pervasive in Southeast Asia, encompassing language, religion, and philosophy, art and architecture, dance and music, and politics as well. Let us move to the process of Indianization or expansion of Indian culture. Indianization and expansion of Indian culture are the concepts popularly used by George Quades, a renowned historian, in his book, The Indianized States of Southeast Asia. But Indianization has never been a standard paradigm. Definitions have evolved with the passage of time. India's civilization and culture were spread to many parts of the world through trade, but struck firm roots in the Southeast Asia. A large number of Indianized kingdoms like Funan, Champa, Dwaravati, Sri Kshetra, Srivijaya, Ankar, Sailendra, Pagan, Kediri, Singasari, Sukhothai, Ayutthaya, and Majapahit had deep political and cultural Indian imprints. Thanks to the contacts with Indian civilization, the Southeast Asia also produced many literary works based on the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Mention may be made of Seri Rama in Malaysia and Ramkher in Cambodia. A Mahabharata monument depicting Krishna and Arjuna riding a chariot pulled by 11 horses is placed prominently in a park in central Jakarta. Further, Indian philosophical terms like karma, yoga, guru had been easily incorporated in everyday conversation in Southeast Asian countries. Temples of Angkor Wat, Pagan, Borobudur, Prambanan are the live evidences to the deep penetration of Indian art and architectural forms in different popular Southeast Asian monuments. Indonesia, being a country with the largest Muslim population, Garuda, the legendary bird in Hindu mythological traditions, has the recognition as the national emblem. The Garuda makes its pervasive presence felt in Thailand and particularly in the Suvarnabhumi airport, Bangkok as well, where the international travelers are greeted with an impressive mythological exhibit of Samudra Manthan, an edifice that is directly influenced by Hindu mythological beliefs. Another important thing is Sanskrit scripts are the first form of writing known to have reached Southeast Asia. Similarly, alphabets were adopted for local languages as well. The alphabets used today for Burmese, Thai, Laos, and Cambodia derive originally from the Indian prototype. Buddhism came to Southeast Asia from India in 3rd century BC. This syncretic culture of Southeast Asia is evident in Buddhism as being practiced in Hindu temples in Cambodia and Muslim wedding rituals and dress in Malaysia based on Hindu rituals. Although Buddhism had not embarked on proselytization, it was nonetheless spread across Southeast Asia. And it became a prominent religious faith in many countries of Middle Ages. Buddhism had spread widely in China, with significant number of Buddhist missionaries arriving in the region through maritime routes. The use of Buddhism is legitimized new regimes in China and the diplomatic exchanges between Southeast Asian polities. And these courts may have also facilitated the spread of Buddhism in the region. The Indian cultural imprints in Southeast Asia were so strong as to provoke even the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, to describe that, quote, begins, if you want to know the heights of old Indian art had reached, you will have to go out of India for that purpose. You will have to go to Java and other places because it reached perhaps greater heights there than even in India. End of quotes. Equally appreciable was the candid observation of Prince Sihanouk on the occasion of inauguration of Jawaharlal Nehru Boulevard in Phnom Penh in 1955. Quotation begins, when we refer to 2000 years old ties which united with, with India, it is not all a hyperbole. In fact, it was about 2000 years ago that the first navigators, Indian merchants, and Brahmin brought Additionally, sorry, there is some, yeah. Indicated that the cultural history of most of countries in South and Southeast Asia appears to have been closely linked to trade and trade routes. Additionally, merchant associations from South Asia and China established their bases in Southeast Asia to participate in trading activities. Southeast Asia was particularly attractive to Indian mercantile class, and they named the faraway island Swarnabhumi, or land of God, and Narikal Dweep, or land of coconuts. They followed two routes, one through the land via Bengal, Assam, Manipur, and Burma to reach different parts of Southeast Asia. The other route was in the maritime route from Coromandel coast or the coast of Bay of Bengal to Cape of Cameroon, and via Malacca Strait to reach the Malay Peninsula. India during Gupta period was a land of riches, and people possessed great skills at weaving textiles, crafting gold jewelry, metal, sculpture, and beautiful objects. Trade between South and Southeast Asia has not limited to the history, but it has also continued until after the Cold War, and impressively in terms of size and spirit. For instance, India's exports to ASEAN countries phenomenally increased from 2,900 million US dollars in 97 to $31,500 million in 21. So was the increase in the imports from ASEAN countries from 2,900 million US dollars in the same period and to $47,000 million during the same period. Evidently, it is clear that the India and Southeast Asian countries sustaining the historical legacy, their trade links, in fact, much improved by all means. Profound cultural and commercial linkages between India and Southeast Asia paved the way for better interaction between the leaders of nationalist movements of different countries of Southeast Asia. The renowned nationalist leader of Indonesia, Sukarno, acknowledged that India and Gandhi have frequently inspired me and our struggle for freedom. And in those lonely years when I had been exiled from my own people or confined to death prison, only because I sought freedom for my people. It was my strong belief in God and the inspiring spirit of India that raised my hopes and my own faith in our cause. Similarly, another nationalist leader from Burma, Unu, said that though I met the Mahatma Gandhi only once, I have always regarded him as my guru. Contacts between nationalist leader of India and Indochina started ever since 1927 when Nehru met the Vietnamese leader Ho Chi Minh and Duong Van Nguyen at the Brussels Congress. Cultural, commercial linkages and political understanding between countries and the leaders of South and Southeast Asia have tremendous impact on the ongoing foreign policies of India and ASEAN countries. The most important part of today's discussion is what is happening between India and ASEAN, particularly in the emerging strategic scenario. In the context of dynamics of globalization and the